What do you think of when you hear the word leader? Oftentimes, we'll think of boss when we hear the word leader, but that's not always the case. Because you can be a leader without being the boss, and being the boss doesn't automatically make you a good leader. In this video, we're going to get into the difference between the two and how you can be a leader where you're at, even if you're not the boss or the supervisor or the CEO. Before we dive in, I want to give credit where it's due and let you know that I've adapted some of the information you're about to hear from these books, and you can check them out in the description down below for more information. First, we need to talk about the levels of leadership, and John Maxwell's book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, outlines this pretty well. The very base level of being able to call yourself a leader is position. Here, people follow you because they have to, or else they get fired. In this, you're simply the boss and nothing more. The buck stops with you, what you say goes, and people may or may not have a certain disdain for being at their job. We've all seen this from time to time. We've all probably had a boss who is just a boss and nothing more. Leaders here don't empower others to be their best. They demand that criteria be adhered to and deadlines to be met. Position can be a good place to start in leadership, but it's not a good place to stay for a long time. When you define your leadership based on your position and nothing else, the only power and authority and influence you have over people is what's outlined in your job description. The second level is permission. Here, it's all about building relationships with other people. And leaders here listen well, observe well, and serve well. When your heart is to truly listen to others and build a relationship with them, you'll be really surprised at the amount of influence you have with them. The old saying is definitely true at this point. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you're not caring for your people around you, they don't really care what you have to say. One pitfall that can happen at this point is using your relationship with another person simply to just get something from them. Another word for this is manipulation. If your heart is to build a relationship for the sake of building a relationship, then you're on the right path. But you should probably just check your motives every once in a while. Just make sure you're still heading down that path. Because transactional relationships don't go past the payment process. The third level of leadership is production. In this level, people follow you because of what you've done for the organization. It's all about results and exceeding metrics. The problem that can arise here is that if you're too focused on exceeding expectations and meeting metrics and producing big results and everything, it's really easy to just kind of let relationships go by the wayside. When you care more about producing results and exceeding expectations than you do the health of the team, your language is quickly going to go from "we're a high-performing team" to "this job has high expectations." Do you hear the difference there? One, you're doing it together, and the other is it's all on you. A high productive team is naturally going to have high expectations, but it's the working as a team that produces that high productivity. Organizations that put levels 2 and 3 together are going to see some pretty phenomenal results because they care just as much about the people as they do the results that the people produce. But there's more to leadership than just this. This brings us to level 4, people development. This level takes a lot more effort to achieve, but it's incredibly worthwhile. Here, people follow you because of what you've done for them. Leaders here recruit people well, position people well, and equip people well. Equipping here looks like developing others, and there's levels to that development. And this is going to be true whether or not you're training a new volunteer or a new hire or helping a coworker learn something new. And it goes, watch me do this, help me do this, I help you do this, you do it. Obviously, there's some nuance for specific situations, but at the end of the day, being a leader looks like equipping others and developing the people around you. Finally, the last level of leadership is called the Pinnacle. This is the kind of natural place you'll find yourself when you've been living in the 4th level for a while and developing others to be that 4th level leader. Here, people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. And it's pretty easy for others to tell those things because who you are is a person that leads and develops and guides people into growth, and you represent what that growth looks like. The great news about all of this is that you don't need to be in a position of leadership for you to be a leader where you're at, whether it's your job or your volunteer work or your church, whatever it looks like. You can be a leader without being the boss. So let's dig into how to be that leader, even if you find yourself at the bottom of the organizational chart. If you want to be a leader, you must first lead yourself. If you don't know how to lead yourself, when you try to lead others, you find that you lack something, and that's authenticity. We can't develop others into something we're not willing to be ourselves. I think this is best summed up in this quote by Scott Wilson. You teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. That's true at any level of leadership. Whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're training a volunteer for your local community center, you won't reproduce in others what's not in you. If you're not willing to be the thing you want others to be, then the only level of leadership that you can possibly attain is positional. Leading yourself looks like having a few things figured out. The first thing is having a personal vision. Where are you going? What's your direction in life? Another thing you have to have figured out is personal leadership. That looks like beginning with the end in mind. It looks like having a personal mission statement. And it just answers the question, what's your life centered on? And another thing is having personal management. It's how are you going about fulfilling that mission and vision for your life? What are your priorities? What do you value most? And a lot of this is just encapsulated in this thought. If you don't know where you're going, no one can follow you. You'll always have influence. But if you're not actively engaging in that influence, you'll never understand the dynamic impact that you can have, whether that's with a child or a spouse or a friend or a coworker or a neighbor. The question, if you want to lead others, whether or not you're their boss, is this: how do I gain influence? Or more accurately, how do I cultivate the potential influence that I have in those around me? Let's dive into what makes up influence. Scott Wilson says that it's made up of respect and relationship. Respect, when it comes to influence, is all about character and competency. This is summed up in the mechanic principle. Have you ever asked anyone if they know a good mechanic? What that question asks is all about character and competency. You're asking if they're trustworthy, if they have character, and if they are competent and they know what they're doing in their job on a level higher than you. Relationship is all about the amount of influence you have in someone else's life. Building that relationship takes time and intentionality. One of the most effective ways of building relationship with others is being authentic. Authenticity is when I say what I do and I do what I say. Inherently, this is attractive most of the time. Imagine if a random person comes up to you and tells you how wrong you are for something. It's really easy to take offense to what they have to say because they don't know how they're communicating with you, and that person has no influence in your life. That's why internet debates turn toxic really quickly and people take offense incredibly fast. But if a friend, a mentor, spouse, or someone that you're close with comes up to you and points out a blind spot or helps you make a correction that needs to happen, it's easy to take what they have to say and accept their perspective because they've built that relationship with you. That person has influence with you. So if influence is the combination between respect and relationship, then the relationships you build with people and the amount of respect that they have for you determines the level of leadership that they see you at. It's possible to have influence with everyone on your team, but when you're not the boss and you didn't pick the team, not everyone will be on board with your influence, and that's okay. And that comes down to a few factors. It could be that they don't share the same values as you. It could be that they see their job as a job and nothing more. It could be that they're not interested in growth and don't really see the value in it. And like I said, you didn't pick them to be on the team. They're your coworkers and not your subordinates. They don't have to listen to you if they don't want to, and that's okay. If you want to grow others, you first must grow. And this brings us back to the idea of leading yourself. If you're leading yourself and growing in your influence, then you'll realize you stop being the one in meetings who has a lot of thoughts but can't really get a word in edgewise, and you turn into the one that people look to when a question gets posed. You become a thermostat instead of a thermometer. Thermostats change the atmosphere of the room. Thermometers can simply read it. Being a leader when you're not the boss looks like growth and inviting others into that journey of growing together. It's hard to grow, especially if you feel like you're the only one at your job that cares about growth. But what we have to realize is this: our own growth is on us. It's not on the people around us. For you, if you want to be a leader, growth is the expectation. If you're not growing, you're either preparing to grow, which is also growth, or you're dying. And if you're a leader or a boss and you're not growing, you've either outgrown the position that you're in or the people have outgrown you. People rise and fall to the level of leadership that's above them, but there's still room for growth for you personally. It just means that the way you grow yourself looks different in different places. in your job, that might look like just gaining influence with your boss and helping them around and growing in that relationship. At home, where you kind of have a more direct say on what happens and how it happens and things like that, you have more of a position of leadership. You can instill family habits and say, no, we're going to eat at the table, not have the TV on, do all of these things. And your leadership there and your growth there looks very different from your growth in your job. There will be times that your growth looks like a very personal victory, and no one, except for maybe a significant other, sees those accomplishments and that growth happening. There are other times where growth looks very outward, and you're leading others to grow around you. I'll give you an example from my personal life. For the past 5 or 10 years or so, I've dedicated myself to growth and leadership development. I worked for this company for a couple years, and I was not above anyone there. I was like bottom of the org chart. If you could see our org chart, is lots of steps between me and the CEO. But I was dedicated to growth and wanted others to join me in that journey of leadership development. So here's what I did. I pitched the idea to my boss and I said, hey, let's have a book club where we can talk about a book that has to do with leadership, personal development kind of stuff. And that hour or so every week will influence and impact on a dynamic scale the work that we do for the rest of the week. And my boss said yes. So my question to my coworkers was really simple. Let's read a chapter of a book every week and meet together and talk about it. And that will influence what we do the rest of the week. That little meeting and doing that every week and every week and every week and helping grow others and grow influence and relationship with others led to my boss asking me to facilitate the creation of our department's mission statement and our team's mission statement, saying this is the guiding principle for us as a team. That's a huge public victory, but I wouldn't have had that public victory without all the private victories that had happened long before that was even in the realm of being a question. The private victories made the public victory possible. The thing with all this is that you can't just expect for growth to happen and not doing anything about it. You have to plan for it. Imagine that you're a farmer. You have to till and prepare the soil in advance before you even plant the first seed. Because if you don't, when the seeds get planted, they're either not going to grow or they're going to grow, but they're not going to get the deep roots that they need, and they're going to die. For me, I had to shift my own paradigms on what growth in myself could look like and how I could facilitate that growth in my coworkers, even though we were all very different people. My ask to people was to join for their growth in their own jobs. Personal growth happens because you want it, not because it's forced on you. We read books on leadership, but really we talked more about our own struggles, what we were going through that week. And those interactions created respect and relationship in me so that eventually my coworkers started seeing me as a leader, even though I never called myself a leader or their boss. I didn't sign their paychecks. I didn't promote them or anything like that. It was simply creating that respect and relationship over time that they started calling me a leader and saw me as a leader on the team without ever me having the promotion saying, Josh, you're a leader. It wasn't that. I wasn't above them on the org chart. We were right in the same line. But they saw me as a leader because I embodied the principles of leadership and I developed others around me. That's what being a leader looks like when you're not the boss. It takes intentional development and growth and plenty of time. But if you're committed to it, you'll see those results in due time. If you like this video, click the like button. If you have thoughts on all what I'm saying, leave a comment down below. Subscribe for more videos just like this one. And you can actually check out a playlist that I have on the channel all about leadership that we're going to be adding more videos to over time. I hope this video is giving you some perspective on what it looks like to be a leader when you're not the boss. Because you can do it. It is possible. Either way, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next week.